Is there a name for the hen that's the leader?
Probably, but we can't say it on a clean show.
Oh, that's right.
Why do we cook? We cook for food, for family, and for friends. We cook to bring people together.
Honey, that looks good. Pardon my fork.
Hello and welcome to Pardon My Fork. This is Andy, and we're doing a throwback edition, you guys. We're playing the second episode that we recorded for Pardon My Fork. It's been a lot of fun going back and listening to our old recordings. We felt very new and very green, but we've come a long way since then, and I really thought that you guys would appreciate going back and hearing this incredible interview that we did with Debi Saltzberg. So please sit back and enjoy this throwback episode. Debi, how are you doing this evening?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much.
We're very fortunate to have you. Thanks so much for doing it. Just Forking Around is the name of her podcast. You can find it at justforkingaround.net, as well as Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, all the same places. And Debi, we love the premise of your show.
Yeah.
We were just earlier listening to your latest episode with Matthew Mabel, and I love the way you guys talk about the restaurant experience and the food experience and the customer experience and the importance of bringing the food to the people and the experience that gives you, the connection that gives you, you know, the bringing together of folks through food.
Yeah, it's like my favorite thing. It's definitely my favorite thing in its entirety. Thinking about it, planning it, executing, indulging, exploring, experiencing. It's the best.
Well, you know, I think that's what our toast this evening should be too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What are you toasting tonight?
Well, because it is after 5 p.m., I definitely have some red wine, darling.
Oh, I do too.
So,
what do you have in your glass tonight?
In my glass, you know, I'm gonna go with this. This is my go-to standard. It's the Duckhorn. It's actually the Decoy Cabernet. It's delicious. It's my favorite. And I think they're out of Napa. Some Decoy's out of Sonoma, California, but the Duckhorn, the company, the winery is in Napa. But this is like my favorite. So that's just what's in my glass. I'm going to raise this glass of Decoy.
Very nice. I have not a wine. It's actually a single malt bourbon from Four Spirits, but it is delicious and smooth and a little bit tropical.
And I am toasting also with red wine, Willamette Valley Vineyards 2015 Hannah. It's their Pinot Noir. And they're our local winery just up the highway, 20 minutes. So
very close to us.
Convenient.
Yeah, very convenient.
So, hey, cheers to that and cheers to you. Thanks so much, Debi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers. I'm going to take a sip. Chin, chin. All right. Delicious.
Well, Debi, I have a question for you. What have you been cooking lately that you're really excited about?
Ooh, it's a good question. So it's hard to, because I cook a lot. So just recently, it's okay. It's soup. Nice. I've been obsessed with this like brothy, like just really rich in herbs and spices like turmeric and like oregano and garlic and ginger. And I think it's because it's starting to get a little cooler out and the season's kind of changed. But like throwing all that in the crock pot in the morning, I mean, and the house smells amazing. And so I don't know if that's right, quote, on cooking, but it kind of is, because really tasting throughout the day with the different spices and making sure that it's, you know, going to nail it on that level. Yeah. And it's just so hearty. So there's that is just, and it's actually funny because I was just enjoying that earlier this evening before this recording. But I think this other thing I've been playing with has been this this play on cast iron chicken with a spicy pineapple kind of sauce in it. So it's a marinating of this pineapple. So it gives this like really amazing, like kind of sweet side a little bit with this a little bit ting of punch of cayenne and chili. Nice. And I don't know, the balance of that is just, it's really good. And of course it starts with an amazing piece of chicken or meat or whatever protein one is using. I think that's the key.
And I'll just go ahead and assume that you are a bone-in person because that's where a lot of that flavor comes in.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay,
definitely.
Awesome. We're
Absolutely.
new best friends for that. The type of people that get the skinless, boneless chicken breast, or like they'll get the frozen chicken tenders and they'll go, oh yeah, I'm going to make shredded chicken. I'm just sitting here going, what are you doing?
No, it comes to, it's the base. It has to be, it has to be the whole. It has to be really, I like to know where my meat comes from pretty much. I'm not out there hunting, so I like to know the farm and the freshness and all that kind of, it's important to me.
Now you're talking. You sound like a natural born Oregonian. You know that?
I do. I think that's a compliment. Thank you. Thank you.
So your show, Just Forking Around, I love it. I listen to it as often as I can. Would you,
thank you.
Talk a little bit about it with our listeners?
Sure. So basically, I have I think around 78 episodes launched. So we started April 4th. I say we, it's just me. April 4th, 2017, 4/4/17. And basically, it's a show about the wonderful world of food and beverages and the incredible people who grow, craft, brew, cook, serve, and create within it. So every week I speak with everyone from the restaurateurs to the farmers, franchisers, chefs, winemakers, really anyone who plays a pivotal part in keeping the food and beverage industry beautiful, amazing, more than a little crazy, and always unique. So that's kind of the description. But the meat of it is really telling the compelling stories of the people that are in it, that are, every day creating and crafting and serving and kind of their story. And we talk about everything from how to run a successful restaurant to, how to grow the grape, how to, spirits. I did a series on female distillers and badass women, bad women distillers, excuse me on that, and women distillers. So I have the opportunity because it's a vast, kind of a net under food and beverage to really be able to explore deeply these really cool, compelling stories and allow these individuals to really shine because they do every day in what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm nodding my head. This just resonates with where our heart is. And, the food and beverage industry, it's about hospitality. It's about bringing people in to your home or your restaurant, which is some people's homes, and sharing with them something you're very passionate about and making them happy, bringing them joy. They might have had a really terrible day, but if you can put a great bowl of soup or a great meal or a great drink in front of them, you can give them that spark of joy for their day. And
then when they remember, and then I love one of the things that when I used to run restaurants, like my favorite thing would be, the lights go down, the restaurant fills up, everyone's doing their dance, the staff, it's magical. And looking around, standing there and just looking around the restaurant and looking at the guests' faces and their experience, I know that that for that moment it's magic. Mm-hmm. And I know that when they then leave and later on in life, if they have a sip of that wine or they have a sense that reminds them, it brings them back to that experience that they had, enjoying with company, a venue or, at home or something like that. And I think to me that experience, like I get chills when I think about it. You can't really, it's priceless, as cliche as that sounds, but it kind of is in a sense of, especially when people's lives are so crazy and so busy and there's these ups and these downs. But coming together, over food, community, there's nothing like that.
That sounds a lot like why or how you ended up in the restaurant business in the first place. Am I wrong? Because you just seem to have this internal passion that is just overflowing. And I'll just assume you had nothing else you could do but go into that line of work.
That's very insightful. That's very insightful. Yes. I've been doing it since I was very young. And even went to college and graduated in business with a hotel restaurant management degree, which is kind of funny because when you did that back then, that didn't really mean a lot in a sense because you still needed experience. Just because you had a degree, it didn't really mean you could just go run a restaurant. So I worked in all positions in the restaurant from the back of the house all the way through to the front of the house and then to management, upper management, and running the restaurants. So yeah, pretty much that was like what I've done. I've done other things along the way, but one foot has always been in restaurants and hospitality. It's just, I don't know. I think it's just one of those things. Like you said, it's like there's not really wasn't really another way for me. It just kind of was how it was to be.
Which then, of course, segued into the podcast, where now you get to talk to people in the industry and get their opinions, and you're able to share them out with others.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's a funny story because I had a situation where I'm not going to get into the gory details, but I hurt my hand. I had a severed tendon, and I broke my finger, and it was all in this one hand. And I had just left a pretty high job position at a resort up here on the West Coast, and I was going to another position, and I couldn't take that position because of my hand, because it was like I was a liability. I couldn't really be on the floor. I couldn't really help. I was wounded. So I had quite a few months to take off, and I ended up starting this podcast in the interim, and I just stuck with that, and I ended up not returning onto the floor running restaurants because this is kind of, I guess, the universe does what it does for you at the time. I think it was an opportunity for me to kind of transition after over 25 years in the industry into a different way. So I still feel kind of in it in a sense, but not on the floor and not as many crazy hours, but I can appreciate all that goes into it.
Man, 25 years in the industry. That's pretty wild.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Over 25 years. It's like, that's a lot of time. It's a lot of hours, a lot of holidays, a lot of weekends.
Oh, yeah. A lot of holidays and weekends that you didn't get. I grew up in a restaurant, and I didn't watch a Super Bowl until I was 19 or 20. You just,
and New Year's Eve was a no-brainer. I was like at the event I never had New Year's Eve off. I think a couple years ago I had New Year's Eve, and I was like, oh my God, like what do you do on New Year's Eve? I don't want to go out there.
Right.
It's like,
I had to be at work at like 6 a.m. January 1st. And I remember my alarm went off, and my first thought was, well, it was the year 2000, and my alarm went off January 1st, and I thought, well, I guess the computers didn't all crash, and the world didn't end on the Y2K.
Y2K, right? That's so funny.
So I'm going to work.
Yep. Oh my God, crazy New Year's Day brunch. Yep.
Now, you sound like the type of person that would have a very eclectic palate. And I know that's definitely something that my wife has, and that's why she's kind of perfect for doing this show with me. Is that something that you feel like you have and or maybe developed over your years in a restaurant?
That's a good question. So I feel like what I like about food and palate is, for me, I don't how do I say this? I don't try to be over the top in one arena and act like this is the genre that is the all. So yes, the wide variety of foods I like, the simplest too. I can appreciate, whatever. If I'm going to like a tasting course with the amuse-bouche, and then there's foam and all the crazy like artful deliveries of food, I can appreciate that. But I also appreciate like arugula with olive oil and a little salt. It's like everything in between. So I think I just like food and tasting, like that how it tastes, like that actual surprise, or, the joy you get, like, whoa, I can't believe that tastes like that. I just love that experience, the curiosity that goes into it as well.
That really resonates with me. I grew arugula this spring, and I can't tell you the number of things that I would say, oh, let's throw arugula into that, and then get to experience something new. And, all these tastes that you have, they remind you of things from the past and experiences and emotions and connections that you've had with people. And I think that that's a drive that I have for food. It's like, oh, if you put this with that, how does this taste, and what goes with what, and how can you bring that emotional experience to the table and really draw people's personalities out and connect with them on this primal level.
I feel like sometimes people have fear in like trying to create or just actually executing. I don't know. Do you ever feel that? Like people get afraid of
trying new things?
Yeah. Or even experimenting, creating new things and having somebody taste it and not, I don't know. And then they might not like it or enjoy it. Or there's this barrier I think people have, like this, especially with a lot of the cooking shows and these quote top chefs. I think people sometimes can be intimidated sometimes.
Well, they might think that it's an unfamiliar ingredient, and so they don't want to ruin something or disappoint somebody or disappoint themselves. There's that fear of failure, fear of trying something new. And if you are unfamiliar with an ingredient, you're not sure how it fits in with everything else you have grown up with and what you're comfortable with. And I'll be the first to admit that change is hard. So there's certain things that I make a certain way, and changing that really is a challenge.
I learned that the hard way.
Like an example would be,
Venison.
Venison.
I grew up making venison a certain way. I make spaghetti sauce a certain way. Scrambled eggs. That was an experience in our marriage.
Scrambled eggs, yes, I understand. There's a certain way to make scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And just also that you can try new things together. And it reminds me of a watermelon salad that I've been working on.
Oh, yeah. Quick shout out to Ember and Vine, because they introduced us to the watermelon salad, and it's really good.
Yeah.
Does it have currants in it? Currants or feta or basil and mint or anything like that?
Yeah, it's watermelon, basil, mint, white balsamic, olive oil, salt, pepper, and honey and some lime juice.
Yeah.
And
it really cuts through the thick smokiness of like if you're doing heavily smoked ribs or pulled pork or something. It's very refreshing. It clears the palate, you know.
Yeah, I had seen watermelon salad online on TV shows, Chopped, things like that, but I'd never made it myself. But we had it at a barbecue event, and I was like, mind blown, have to experiment with this. So I went home and I did a salad with mint and a salad with basil and then a salad with both. And, combining those two was a really new experience for me. And I was like, okay, this is a new thing. This is great. But
it works.
It works. And you're surprised by it. I have a new book. My new favorite book is called The Flavor Bible. And, our new acquaintance, Kim Bannock, told me about it. And it's been a really awesome book to explore. I don't know if you've ever read that.
I'm going to write it down right now.
The Flavor Bible.
You must have some recipe books. I'm curious to know what kind of recipe books you have, what your favorite is, or where you go to find your recipes.
So I am that person that I'm not a baker, so I'm not really good at following recipes.
Oh, I'm right there with you, sister. Preach it.
I'm just not good at it. I actually can screw things up if I follow a recipe, because I have to keep going back. I'm like, did I add that? Did I do this? So the quarter, was it? It's too much. It's too methodical.
Yeah.
So I go with, I don't know, if I go out to a restaurant and I have a dish, I kind of let my mouth kind of figure out, oh, that was kind of a cool combination, like spicy or the savory, or is there sweet in there? And then I literally, when I go to a certain grocery store that is kind of like a farmer's market, so whatever is there is seasonal.
Yeah.
And so I know whatever, then I work with what I see. And I'm like, oh, maybe if I do this, and then I'm like, wait, what was that to-go salad dressing I had? Sumac. I don't even know what sumac, spices. I'm going to figure that out. And then I start playing with that. I do have two cookbooks that I have looked through to kind of try to get some ideas of combinations. And one of them is, it's the One Gun Ranch. They're a biodynamic farm here in Malibu.
Ooh.
And they have a cookbook. And I used to volunteer on that farm for 3 years with biodynamic. We did a lot of growing for Nobu and Spago, and a lot of boutique high-end chefs, just really curated, cool herbs and edible flowers, and obviously biodynamic vegetables. So I'll look through that book because I know it's by the season, and I know what I understand. I trust the simplicity of the recipe, because I don't like to go too heavy on ingredients. Besides, I'd rather showcase the squash, versus covering it and stuff. And then the other one is, I really love this as a restaurant also in Malibu, and it's called Malibu Farms, and Chef Helena, and she has a cookbook, she is awesome. I mean, she started doing farm to table. She literally grew, vegetables and raised the chickens, and then would have people over and just do the one long table and have people come over. And then she opened up this restaurant in Malibu, and really it's exploded into a few other ones, one in Hawaii and then one somewhere else. But her food has never lost the integrity, even as she's grown in her restaurants. And her cookbook kind of reflects that simplicity, yet kind of cutting edge, like the cauliflower pizza crust before people were doing that, cauliflower crust instead of the dough. And it's delicious the way that she does that. So those would be my two. I don't know if I follow the recipes, but I use them as a reference.
Right. Like for someone who doesn't follow a lot of guidelines in their life, these are a few guidelines that you do try to at least reference.
Yes. How do you know me so well? That's so fun.
It's
True.
just an ability that I have.
And we literally just met, so it's not like you have intel on me. So this is awesome. I love that.
It's like the scene out of Step Brothers. Do we just become best friends?
Yeah, we just become best friends. Come on.
Sometimes I feel like I was born in the wrong century. I really like reading old recipes from 100, 200 years ago and how they created things.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Yeah. Tell me some about that. That's awesome.
I have two cookbooks. So I am a Jane Austen snob and really obsessive. And I've gone to Jane Austen tea parties in costume. And
I was going to say, have you gone to them? They had the whole Jane Austen in the East Coast. What was it? The parade?
Uh-huh.
I just pictured you in this Jane Austen outfit.
Yeah, I do.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. I do have one. And then I also really like Little House on the Prairie and Anne of Green Gables. And I've read all of those books multiple times. I have the Anne of Green Gables cookbook and I have the Little House on the Prairie cookbook. And I have the Jane Austen cookbook in my Amazon cart right now. And I love to go back and say, well, how did Laura Ingalls Wilder make pickles when she was in that cabin? Or how did Anne of Green Gables make her cherry cordial? And so I have those, and I've read them, and I love to can and make pickles and jams and jellies, and so I always go back and look at those as a baseline, and then apply a little modern technology.
Oh yeah,
so I'm curious then, how does that translate? Because I remember, I think with Little House on the Prairie, the provisioning was different then. You go and you tell them what you want, and then they kind of curate it for you and give you the bet. Give it to you, right? The shopping obviously was different back then. So I'm curious as the base of the pickles still the same, or some, I don't know.
No, it's different. Because
I love pickles. I really love pickles. So.
Girl, we just became best friends. I'm a pickle fiend. Oh, I like make pickles and can when I'm stressed. So yeah, so I've got an entire bookshelf of pickles. So the Laura Ingalls Wilder time, they made pickles by fermentation. They had those crocks. So they would get the pickles or cucumbers, and they would salt them to store until they were ready. And then they would brine them and then ferment them. And so if you've ever had a like Bubbles pickles as a brand.
Yeah.
And so those are more of a lacto fermented pickle. And it was a fun thing for kids to do, to reach into the pickle crock or the pickle barrel and get pickles out. They didn't have the glass that we have now that's tempered and can handle the high pressure. So they actually stored a lot of their food in crocks with fermentation. And so that's really interesting, which brings in, they had a lot of natural probiotics and prebiotics. And so they had that health benefit coming through with their fermented pickles. And their slaw, they would make their sauerkraut, and that would be in crocks.
When you say crocks, do you mean, I just picture the big barrels, like the wine barrels. Is that what you mean? Like
it's a
heavy.
Like,
it's a ceramic, basically.
Yeah.
I mean,
ceramic.
think like a clay pot, but with the glaze baked on the outside.
Yeah, you could put a couple small children in it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
My mom collected them for a while. She actually had a big, fancy one that was like 100 years old in the garage, and I lost the brakes on my go-kart and ended up crashing into it.
That was you?
Yeah.
So, because I picture the more that I'm speaking to you now, I just picture, is your home very homesteady? Is it very, so cool.
You nailed us.
I love it.
We live in a small country town in Oregon. We have about an acre. I have 32 chickens, 7 ducks, and a turkey.
Oh my God. So I'm going to come visit, because I'm obsessed with the venison and then the meat. And I know that the last episode, I think of this podcast, and I was listening to your intro, and I was like, okay, I love her.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I knew how to cook deer before I knew how to fry eggs.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then I love gardening. Dirt therapy is really important to me. I think I get a little antsy about February when I can't go dig in the dirt. So, but by March I can get my hands dirty, and that's good.
See, Southern California is so good. So it's funny. So I record all my podcasts on my boat. I have a sailboat, and it makes it very, it's almost like a little studio. It's really cool. But today I'm in where I live, which is in Santa Monica, and it's a little condo. But I'm really into urban gardening.
Yes.
And taking, wasted lands, put spaces, and kind of maximize usage for that.
Absolutely.
So in between my building and the one next to me, it's pretty thickly settled where I am in Santa Monica, but there is this little alleyway, and I was like, I'm going to make a garden. So I just tore it up and started putting in little beds. And then what I realized was the sun, it changed, obviously it moves direction, but it really changes come this time of year until March or so. But there's still a little bit of sun because the buildings are so narrow, the way that the angle is further away. But I have right now, I have beets, carrots, radishes, tons of different varietals of lettuces. And the only thing I can't really grow is anything that flowers because it needs the pollination in the sun, at least 6 hours for all that. But I've sort of maximized that space.
Yeah. So
when we were talking about the arugula and all the others, and I was just in the garden this morning, there is nothing like getting in there, like you said, in the dirt. There's something so soothing and so spiritual in a sense, and then you start to think, this seed, I put it in the soil, give it a little love, say a little prayer, whatever, give it a little water, and then it grows into what it's supposed to grow into.
How does it know that? Isn't that an amazing? And scientists study, and they can't quite get to that point of germination when life starts. But I just love that sprinkling seeds, covering them up and going, okay, grow, produce, feed me.
And then you go out and you check, I'll go out just a couple days later. I'm like, oh my gosh, the teeny little seedling is popped through, this dirt that's heavy, and it just popped through. I don't know. I just find it to be amazing.
I do too.
And then harvesting it right when you want to eat salad, it's right there. I don't know. There's nothing like it.
It's so satisfying.
The spiritual aspect that you bring up, that's a really good point, because I know a lot of people are getting back into the whole, walking around on the grass in their bare feet to make the connection, blah, blah, blah. Not that I'm talking down about that. I do that once in a while myself because, hey, couldn't hurt, right? But getting down on your hands and knees and being elbow deep in this soil and digging through these plants, that has got to have something more than just walking around barefoot on the grass while you're surfing Facebook, right?
Right.
There's a deep connection. I mean, playing in the earth, tending to the earth, caring about it, putting into it, and then hoping and receiving back from it. It's really, really rewarding. I really get a lot out of saying, I want to have coleslaw. I'm going to go out to my garden and pick cabbage and carrots and make coleslaw. And, 24 hours before, I was watering those cabbages. It's really rewarding. I really enjoy it. Every morning I try to go out to the garden and pick something and eat it on my way to work. Whether it's figs or apples or tomatoes. I really like that. It's a good way to start the day.
Yeah, it's amazing. And sometimes I harvest and I'll give some of the salads to the neighbors because it's like, hey, I just harvested this from the garden. Look out your window. That's where it came from. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me, Debbie, I was going to ask you, because we were talking about venison earlier. What is your take on, wild game versus the farm raised meat? It's been a long time actually since we've eaten any factory farm meat, because since we started doing the chickens and the ducks, and then we found some avenues for getting heritage breed pork that didn't cost us an arm, a leg, and an eye.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's okay. So I feel as though for me, there's so many parts to it of how one sources meat. We'll just use meat as an example because it's, I'm in LA and everything's going plant-based, and it's interesting, the whole dialogue about it. But for me, it's really, and it always been as very important. So I live in Santa Monica. I'm from Boston. I wasn't really out there, hunting and gathering, in the wild. It's more like the supermarkets or farmers markets. So I do support farmers markets, and I love farmers markets. It's just really difficult for me to get there and shop. So fortunately for me, there's, I don't know if we can say the names of the supermarket, but there's a great small market that I shop at all the time. And they source, it's not like I trust them and I know where the meats are coming from. And I know that, you know, it's humanely raised and all the checklists that's important for me I'm able to check off growing at the supermarket. The challenge for me is going out to eat at restaurants when sometimes you're not sure. I mean, a lot of the restaurants I do go to, it'll be like, it will name, you know, Neiman Ranch or, you know, Mary's Chicken or, you know, these different names where I know what their source, but not always do people know. Same with the seafood. So that can be a challenge for me going out to restaurants, and I don't want to be at a restaurant and be that guest. Like if I'm with a group, that's like the problem, you know? It's, you know, cause then now you're making a great experience, like it's kind of something that you don't want to cause some negativity. So that's a dance. That's an interesting one as dining out, going to restaurants. But at home, I definitely source. I mean, I wish I could be like you all or like Ted Nugent, you know, going out and getting hunting and gathering, you know, but that's just not my thing.
I'm with you.
I don't know if I answered a question on that. I mean, I want to have chickens. Yeah. I want to have a chicken coop so bad, but I don't think I can't here because my neighbor had one and I live thickly settled, like I said, and he had to get rid of his chickens. Oh. So it's difficult. I know. But I do have you ever been to Venice or Santa Monica?
Once when I was very young.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's really thickly settled.
It is. It's very
thick. A lot going on. But there's this one street, which is a very popular street, Abbot Kinney. And it's like a smaller Rodeo Drive in a sense. But there's this, it's called the Chef's Garden. And there's this woman who has the girls, the hens, lays eggs. And then I volunteered there for a while too, where there's a lot of raised beds and we grow vegetables for the restaurants in the area. So they can either rent the box and grow themselves or we would do it for them. So Google, like we grew with 12 boxes for Google, the chef at Google, and some of the other higher end restaurants, even just regular restaurants, and then some for just families. But what I really loved about that was the idea that the chickens were there. So I would always be able to get the eggs. Because once you know this, once you have an egg, I mean, you can't go grocery store egg.
It's so true. It's so true.
You can't go back.
I've told Corianne that I don't know how many times. Eating her eggs is just so much different than the supermarket eggs.
It's like it doesn't even, different ballgame.
Totally.
Yep. It's totally different ballgame.
I sell my chicken eggs and we keep the duck eggs for ourselves.
Nice.
I'll tell you what.
So did you always have this homesteady kind of like, it sounds self-contained in a sense, like you kind of have this closed loop system in your home of how it all operates, a little ecosystem. We're
a little bit that way. I think that we just generally tend that direction as people, but we haven't always been able to live this way. We lived kind of downtown Portland, Oregon, in a studio for a long time. And then we got a duplex, and Corianne wanted to plant, and the landlord said, please feel free to plant whatever you want, except we have this horrible mole problem, so whatever you plant is just going to get eaten from the roots up. And then we have two very lovely cats, and they're very old now, but at the time they were young and spry, and they completely cleared the moles out. And
I love that.
Our landlord said, this is the first time I've been able to grow carrots in probably 10 years of owning this house. So Corianne got a little bit of gardening done there.
Well, I did 4-H growing up.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so I did when I lived in Colorado.
Sorry, I was talking about our married life. But yes.
Sorry,
Right, that's right. You're from Colorado because you're talking about the bobcats. The bobcats and the
mountain
that's another. Yeah.
Yeah, I did 4-H growing up, and so we did vegetables in the fair, and I had chickens and cake decorating and crochet and all that. And I remember when I lived in California, I was born in Claremont. I lived there till I was 10, and then we moved to Colorado, and we had lemon trees and tangerines and tomatoes coming out your ears. And so I always loved when, we'd grow tomatoes, and, if you wanted lemons, you just go in the backyard and pick fresh lemons.
Yeah.
And Colorado gardening is very different than California. But I still really enjoyed the gardening club that the 4-H community had. And I did Cornish game hen chickens for my 4-H project. So those are meat birds, very different than egg laying birds. And then, when we had our own space, I was like, I had the best time doing this, and I really find a lot of satisfaction and independence in growing my own food and knowing what's in it and how that whole process goes, and taking what's coming out of the chicken coop in the duck house and putting it onto my blueberries or into my garden beds or on my apple trees. And then, eating that. And then you take the kitchen peelings and give it right back to the chickens.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Is it hard to have chickens? People always told me it's not it seems so dramatic, like, oh my God, I have a chicken coop and I have all these chickens. But people said it's not as difficult to maintain as one might think.
It's not as hard. I mean, you have to be committed to it. Every morning I get up and I let the ducks and chickens out and give them a snack. And the ducks lay eggs first thing in the morning. So that's what I collect in the morning. And I always, check everybody, make sure they're okay. And then at night I give everybody fresh water, top off their food, put everybody into their coop at night. And I've trained my ducks. So we have a little nighttime routine, and they get in a row. I get my ducks in a row.
That's amazing.
They go to bed. And so they're trained. Consistency is very important with ducks, more so than chickens. They really need a routine.
They are neurotic.
Yeah. If Andy puts the ducks to bed, they're not.
No, they'll still go, but there's definitely something going on with them where they're like, you're not mommy.
Yeah.
They're like, who's this guy?
So the consistency is more important. The chickens will put themselves to bed, and I usually go in and fuss and move them around and I don't know, just fuss with my chickens.
Well, I was about to say,
therefore you can't ever go away, or do you have a stand-in? Can you have somebody be you?
Yeah, our nephew can stop by, and we have a friend. We're going to get a solar-powered chicken door, so it'll open at a certain time.
Technology.
So that will be helpful. And we have some large 25-pound feeders, so you just top that off when you go.
And listen, Debbie, I'm going to be real honest. If the chickens were more snuggly, it would take Corianne twice as long.
Yeah.
But because they're hard to catch, then it takes her a little bit of time because she's like, I don't have time to try to catch you.
All right. Hold on a minute. Rosie has a massive crush on you. I will just say.
Okay. I will admit there's one chicken that likes to be picked up. She'll stand on my boot and I'll pick her up and she'll get up on my shoulder or my arm.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
but she was always she was also the runt when we got these chicks. They were day old chicks and she was the runt and she wasn't going to make it. And so I started trying to bring her back around by hand, and I did. And you know what? We have a bond, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Now, is it true that there's the one, the leader of the chicks?
Yes.
What's it called? Is there a name for the hen that's the leader?
Probably, but we can't say it on a clean show.
Oh, that's right. But anyways, so you do have, there is the pecking order, I guess.
There's a pecking order, very much so. There's very much a pecking order. We recently rescued 2 hens and a turkey that were in an unfortunate situation. And the hens and this turkey are very attached to each other. And the turkey almost treats these little hens like they're her babies, even though they're all 2 years old. So when we moved them in with the rest of the flock, the hens that were there are picking on the new ones, which always happens, and they're establishing dominance and seeing where everybody fits in. And so when the older hens pick on the newer hens, then the turkey goes after them, defending her ladies. And then our big rooster, Big Reuben, then he goes after the turkey. It's funny to watch because
it's crazy.
They're very protective.
Yeah. So they establish, you have to let them work it out.
They have to work it out. It takes about a month, and they'll work it out. The best time to add new birds to your flock is at night because they can't see
really?
And they're sleepy, and you just take them from one place and put them into another. And that has the least drama. Yeah.
It's actually kind of weird. The chickens wake up and there's new chickens there, but since they're just waking up to the new chickens, it's like they kind of accept it. It's weird. We've done it 3 or 4 times now where we just stick new chickens into the coop at night, and then in the morning, there's a pecking order thing, but if you try to integrate them during the day, it's just an all-out brawl.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. I love that whole, because it's fascinating, right? I mean, how it plays out. It really is.
But chickens are really easy. If anybody wants to start chickens, I say start with 5 or 10. and get yourself into a routine, get used to it, because you're still going to do the same chores morning and night. And chicken math is weird because if you start out with 5, 10 is a natural progression. And if you have 10, well, why not 20? And once you have 20, then 30, it's no big deal. You just buy an extra bag of feed.
That's interesting, right? It's not like a dog where 2 dogs turns into, it's like,
no,
it seems exponential.
It is exponential.
60, yeah.
Yeah. It goes out crazy. I cut myself off. I was like, no more. Like, I'm done at 30. And then, but what's 2 more? And a turkey. Let's just throw a full-grown turkey.
Turkey's kind of a chicken. They all can live together.
It's just 30 pounds. It's a 30-pound turkey.
Oh, gosh. Do you raise animals that you harvest?
We have. Yeah, we did Cornish game hens this year.
Oh, yum. Yum. Sorry. Yum.
Yeah, they're delicious. They were really
delicious.
good.
They really are.
Yeah, actually, Andy was responsible for the Cornish game hens. I was doing some chores and I said, I need some feed. And so he went to the store to get a 50-pound sack of feed. And there happened to be a buy a bag of feed, get 5 chicks free special. So he pulls up and I was like, okay, back the truck up. I'll help you unload the feed. And he's like, well, I did a thing. I was like, what happened? And so we go over to the pickup and he hands me this chirping box. And I was like, what did you do? And they were so cute. Oh my gosh. And Cornish game hens are the most laid back chickens you'll ever meet.
They're not nice. They just don't move very fast.
Yeah. They just eat, sleep, and poop. And they don't really move very much. They just want to eat and sleep.
Listen, Debbie, any listener to the regular Booze Booze and Barbecue show is going to know that I am a notorious cheapskate. And when they said, would you like some free chicks? I was like, what kind are they? And they said they're meat birds. And I was just like, yeah.
Yes. Because all of a sudden you're like, that's a deal.
Yeah. It's a deal. And honestly, they're 8 weeks are ready to go. So.
At 8 weeks, they were ready to go?
Yeah, 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. I think we pushed to 10. We did them at 10 weeks and they're...
all at the same time?
Yeah, we did all 5 in one day and it was pretty quick. And I think they were probably 10, 12 pounds hanging weight.
Nice.
Yeah, they were huge.
They're big birds.
Hey, listen, we're talking about these meat birds, which is transitioning me into Thanksgiving is coming up. And I'm pretty curious to know what you're going to be cooking for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Or rather eating, actually. Cooking or eating.
I'm from Boston and grew up Thanksgiving. My parents are Jewish, which has nothing to do with Thanksgiving.
Oh, well, I am.
But thank you. But the interesting part about growing up Jewish, having all the holidays and everything's based around food, the main holiday is Thanksgiving, which in our family, it's just been that traditional. So no matter where I am in the world, I always have to go home for Thanksgiving. It's just, that's how it is. And my mom, my mother, Deborah, Deborah. But she's very traditional Jew, Boston, awesome. Love her. And my dad, they're alive still and they're together. And I have a couple of sisters. So the tradition is that every year I go home and on Wednesday, I spend the day, the Wednesday for Thanksgiving, I spend the day with my mom. It's usually just me and my mom. And we start drinking wine kind of early. We put music on and we just cook. When you say the old school, I mean, where she literally has the old school recipe card, the index card that's you can barely read because it was passed down from the grandmothers. And we just go through and we just make the dishes that are traditional in the sense, maybe for our family, but traditional, spirited in the table setting of Thanksgiving. So, we make our own cranberry sauce and, we put a little Jello mold in there because it's a little bit Jewish and a little simmis in there, which is a little Jewish. And then a little kugel. So there's maybe the Jewish side of the Thanksgiving, but then it's the turkey that, my mom stresses out every year. Oh my God, the turkey is going to be done. It's going to be delicious. So we make our 3 different types of stuffing. And then every year we have kind of a debut. So we rotate with the sisters on, okay, who's debuting a new side? So it'll either be some cool new Brussels sprout dish or some new cool cauliflower dish, but it's a vegetable base that somebody has to come up with. So this year it's not me. I don't have to come up with the special one because I did last year, it wasn't overly spectacular. It was just they never really had this kind of cool, delicious style of a roasted cauliflower, which is a mashed potato in a sense, the fillingness of it. So I just kind of spruced it up a little bit and did that. But the problem is that what happens is on Thanksgiving Day, there's not a lot of oven and reheating space. So you have to kind of be very thoughtful on how you're going to execute with a very limited space of heating and creating. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I just got really excited about, because just that scent of the smell is so delicious of Thanksgiving when you walk into the house and it's Boston and, the leaves are changing and it's cold but you have the heat on and everyone's cooking and, little flushed cheeks from the wine and, it's amazing. You're so full, but all the desserts. Oh my God, how can I have a piece of that pumpkin pie that I don't necessarily love, but I have to eat the pumpkin pie, that kind of thing.
Oh, I'm 100% with you. And I'm thinking about, I kind of do this unconsciously. I'm a grill addict. I got some grills I got to get rid of because I just got a couple more.
Do you collect them? Yes. You can't help yourself?
I shouldn't collect them, but I do.
Does.
They were deals, okay?
He's a deal hunter, and he loves to grill.
Because the deal, you have to buy it.
And there's I don't have that one.
Okay, you're that way with chickens. I'm that way with grills. Anyways.
That's a good match, though.
It is.
It is a good match. It's a great match.
I eat well.
Well, I keep my grills fired up. When we're doing a big family cook like that, I'll keep my grills fired up the whole day because you never know when something's going to need to be cooked.
Yeah.
And when you've got a charcoal grill where the grate raises and lowers, you can boil water on that thing if you needed to.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's always something that I do because you're absolutely right. You run out of kitchen space. That is the universal sign of Thanksgiving is I've now run out of kitchen space. So what am I going to do? Where am I going to cook this stuff? And that's why I get 3 or 4 bags of charcoal and I just keep all the grills fired up because you never know.
Oh my God, that's such a good idea.
You had asked us about things that we always do a certain way. And, my turkey is one of those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tell about the turkey.
Okay. So I love to brine my turkey. That's how I do it. And I don't vary from that. And last year, Andy tried to mess with it. Drove me nuts. It tasted just fine. It was perfect. But I was like, you're changing it.
Like the brine? Or
the brine, all of it. All got changed.
Geez, I changed like 2 things.
So I like to brine my turkey in an apple cider brine. So we get some local apple cider and I put some herbs into it. I make the brine on the stove, then cool it down, pour it over the turkey and stuff the cavity with orange wedges and let the turkey sit for 2 days to a week.
Wow.
And that apple cider really gets into all the nooks and crannies and it soaks it up. And then we smoke the turkey. So Andy and I will get up really early and get the bird going on the smoker and cook all day. And it is the best turkey.
I bet that's the best turkey, for real.
It's so good. A smoked turkey, brined in apple cider for 2 days to a week. And it's so good.
Honestly, it doesn't take that long to be on the smoker. I mean, I think I finished last year's. I ran it a little hotter. I ran the smoker at like 270.
Yeah.
And the turkey was done in, I don't know, 6 hours. Like it really didn't take that long. It's the rest though.
Yeah.
Debbie, I have no doubt from your time in a restaurant, like if you're cooking a piece of meat, it doesn't matter what the piece of meat is. It needs a little bit of rest time. Otherwise, if you slice it, right.
Yeah.
It's all about the rest. I think Coriander was talking about that in your last episode. It's all about the resting.
Yeah. Let it rest. Let it soak it up or else it'll be dry and tough. And I've learned that lesson the hard way more than once. Had to relearn some lessons 3 times. And then the side dishes, stuffing on Thanksgiving is a point of contention for some people. I was raised with rice stuffing and your family.
Really?
Yeah, we did a wild rice stuffing growing up. We never did the bread stuffing.
I like the wild rice stuffing idea.
Yeah, it was
I want to come over to the West Coast for Thanksgiving. I don't want to go to the East Coast. I'm coming up there.
Yeah.
So listen, you have an open invitation to Friends.
I have this tickets to Portland because it's Portland. There's something, I don't know if you live near Portland or Seattle where you would fly into, but I have this thing about Portland. I've never been. I know, but I have tickets. I'm supposed to go there. Have planned to go there twice now, and something has happened right before, which is weird. I never cancel trips, but one was a family thing, and the other one was there was a condo had caught fire. Not to bring the drama in, right? But I'm saying, like, really weird things have happened right before I was supposed to go to Portland. So I have these tickets that keep getting pushed to come to Portland, like the round trip ticket. So this might be the one. This might be the chance. Maybe not for Thanksgiving, but just to come visit you guys.
Oh, yeah. Friendsgiving.
Friendsgiving.
Yes. Okay. So I always do a practice Thanksgiving every year. I'm that person. So every year I practice new recipes on unsuspecting friends. And I invite them over and I tell me what you think on things. And if
you'd like to be one of those unsuspecting friends, just go ahead and shoot us an email, Andy@boostboostbbq.com.
And
right?
My fourth.
Seriously.
So we always do the turkey, make sure that we've got this 10-year-old recipe down right. And then we try new side dishes and old side dishes and make sure everything's still good. And then we make Thanksgiving. Most of the time we've been making it for your parents. But the wild rice stuffing, and I like to put in celery, pine nuts, onions, garlic, rosemary, sage, thyme, cook it in chicken bone broth that I make. And that's what I grew up on. And actually it was your house. I think maybe it was Bob and Linda's. Was the first time I had bread stuffing. I was like, what is this creation? I've never had this before.
Debbie, you do the bread stuffing, yes?
Yeah, we do bread stuffing. And then we do some with sausage. Sometimes with we can spruce it up a little bit with cranberry. We put different elements in, kind of change it up. So Corianne, it might freak you out because it's not consistent every year. No, we do. We have one stuffing that is always the same. Your standard traditional bread stuffing. But then we get a little crazy with a couple different playoffs of it. But we do keep one thing traditional threaded through, so you can rely on that one. But we do bread. I've never heard of another stuffing like a rice stuffing. Never heard of this.
Yeah, and it's not cooked inside the turkey. It's cooked separate. And of course, when they serve it, my father would do this he was all about the big presentation and would put the rice in the cavity of the turkey and then serve it on this giant platter. And, but it was delicious. And my favorite thing was that crunch of the pine nuts and a little bit of crunch and green of the celery in with that really minerally taste of the wild rice. And, he would add white wine and chicken broth and it was really good. And that's what I always had.
And you know what I'm thinking about is you'd mentioned Brussels sprouts earlier. I am trying to come up with a recipe for Brussels sprouts for this year because I've gotten way into charbroiled cabbage on the smoker.
Ooh, well, bacon.
Well, yeah.
Always bacon.
But I mean, Brussels sprouts are essentially just these bite-sized cabbages that just are packed with flavor. I don't know how you do your Brussels sprouts.
It depends because again, I couldn't tell you this play by play because I don't write it down, but I'll do different ways. Sometimes, there was a time period there when I was really into the balsamic, deglaze it with reduction, like with a little bit of porchetta, to give it a little bit of fat with the sweet of that. So that's always a crowd pleaser. Then sometimes I'll just steam them real quick. And then I'll saute them, but I'll put in garlic, salt, pepper, and really just kind of in a cast iron and really just kind of fry, get it really charred.
Yeah.
That way and just go simple. But I go back and forth. Again, it depends on, it's interesting to me with vegetables and Brussels sprouts. It depends on my mood, but it also depends on the weather, and kind of what's going on. Sometimes I want more of a playful, a little bit of a, savory and a little maybe spice, or sometimes I want that fat in there. I want the porchetta or I want the bacon in there just to give it something hearty. So for me, it's so many elements that go in to a Brussels side dish. I know that was probably dramatic, but it's true.
It is so true. It is so true.
It's kind of like wine. What kind of wine do I want? Well, it depends.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I am if I have a playful side dish, that's sort of how I am. I have a couple of ideas, the road I may take, but I might not know until I'm in it. Okay, what's going on, the weather, how I feel, what other dishes are being prepared? Is it everything really heavy? Do I need a lighter dish? That kind of thing.
A Brussels sprout slaw with cranberries and sliced almonds is really good too.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That's really good.
You guys.
That's nice and light.
Yeah.
You were laying down food for thought and knowledge for life. You know that?
I feel like I'm not as I'm a little more off the cuff, kind of decide as I go.
Yeah.
And I feel like Corianne, I feel like I want to guess what, are you I almost want to say you're a Cancer or don't say yes yet. You're a Cancer or a Capricorn.
We're both
Astrology.
Geminis. Andy and I are both Geminis.
Oh, you're Geminis?
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
I know, right?
And I know
I wouldn't have guessed that. I wouldn't have guessed it.
No, it's super
met.
weird. Well, people always, they'll hear that. They're like, wait, you're both Geminis? How does that work?
Yeah, how does that work?
That perfectly works, I think.
We're both on the tail ends of it, but opposite ends of Gemini.
Yeah.
Because you're mid-May and I'm mid-June.
Mm-hmm. We're cuff babies.
Yeah, you are. Okay, you have to guess my sign.
Virgo.
No,
Sagittarius.
No, but in the similar genre of the red, of the fire.
I don't know. I give up.
Aries.
Oh.
Aries. Do you have any Aries in your life? Because Aries and Gemini usually go together quite well.
Well, that's all the more reason for you to fly out here,
March.
kiddo.
Yeah.
Late March or April.
Oh.
I don't know. You'll think about it now.
Yeah, now I'm going to think about it.
So and so. Yeah. I always try to guess people's signs. I know that's strange, but it's a fun little game. I play with myself like, oh, I bet I know what their sign they are. But I wouldn't have guessed Gemini, let alone double Gemini.
Yeah.
You're from California. We'll let you get away with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you'd love Portland. And you definitely have to come out and hold a chicken.
Oh, we're going to drag you out here for sure. We'll find some event that you just can't live without going to, and then we'll get you down here.
Find an event. We'll make an event. We'll be the event.
Right? That's right. We're going to make an event. I want you to be on will you be on the Just Forking Around podcast?
Yeah.
I'd love it if you were on my show.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Schedule it.
We could probably get a winery to open up on a weekend and we'd go do a show at a winery. We know a couple
That'd
people.
Really fun.
Oh,
we'll do the show in person. So when we do the show, because like I said, I have these tickets that are just burnt. I need to get up there.
And Corianne's not wrong. I mean, through the show, we've made so many contacts. We could get a private tour to one of the local wineries, one of the local breweries, one of the local distilleries, multiple breweries and distilleries.
Make a day
if we could find somebody that would drive us around, we could probably be drunk for 3 days.
Sweet. We're going to be drunk and full.
Yeah,
that's right.
I was just thinking of going out to the beach and going to the smoked oyster shack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Love oysters.
Oh, I do too. So
I have to go to Portland. I really feel like I'm going to love it there. That maybe why it's been like one of those things where I haven't been up there because maybe I would have to be like, that's it, I'm moving. I don't know. I just feel like I'm going to really enjoy it.
There's a lot to try. There's a lot to see.
I'll warn you, though, if you've ever watched Portlandia,
it's very true.
It is exactly like that.
Well, I didn't want to bring it up when I was talking to you, but it was funny because we were talking about the heritage and then the show and they're asking the server all the questions about the chicken and, and they end up going to the, I don't know if you saw that one. They go to the heritage farm and next thing you know they're there for like 5 days.
Yeah, they're in a cult. The reason why we're not laughing is because it's too true.
It's so true.
I know. That's why I know. And I love that show and I love the both of them. So
there's quite a few places on the show we've been there and done that.
It made it hard to watch because we were both like laughing, but then we also went, oh, I like their matcha tea there.
Oh, they make a coffee. Oh, I've had a sandwich there.
That's awesome.
Oh, gosh.
Awesome.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much for being here and doing this. Just Forking Around is the podcast. JustForkingAround.net is where you can find all the episodes, as well as Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and anywhere else you like to find your podcasts. Go and check it out. Debbie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You two are amazing. And I'm really excited to our part 2 and to listen to more of your episodes on this podcast. So thank you. You two are amazing.
It's been a blessing talking to you. I feel really grateful that you took time out of your day to meet with us.
Oh, thank you so much for the invite. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait to do it again. Hey, so thank you, Debbie, and we will talk to you soon, okay?
Cheers.
Yes. Cheers.
What did I tell you guys? So much fun talking to her, and a lot of fun looking back at one of our very first episodes of Pardon My Fork. And as always, you can find links to everything that we talked about and links to what Debbie has going on pardonmyfork.com/podcast. The all new, we just made it. Very happy with that website, so go and check it out. Facebook.com/pardonmyfork, of course, is where you can find all of the regular daily content being posted. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for telling a friend. For Debbie and Corianne, this is Andy, and we will see you next time.